Did they
There's-
give it?
Did she read it in the original German?
Did they give it an all-female cast
I thought there
reboot?
was a newer kid-friendly version
Is
where
it
they don't
Gretel
all
and
fucking
also
die.
Grendel?
No, just like the nose. No. All right, are we good? Are we
We're
live?
good. We're live. All right, what's up,
are we doing a
Bookers?
bit?
It's the one and only Leopold Bloom-chan, back again with another episode of James Joyce's Ulysses.
Let us fucking go.
So a little bit of backstory here. This is chapter 12. Starts on page 528 of the PDF. Those of you following along at home. So this chapter is called Cyclops on account of.
Is there someone missing an eye?
No.
Oh.
Yeah, I don't really. I'm not really sure
The
what the
audience
Cyclops.
missing an eye.
I don't really know what Cyclops about this. I'll be honest.
Nothing much. What's Cyclops?
Yeah. So. Oh man, my eye is doing weird things.
Hey, that's why.
You're becoming a Cyclops.
Oh, it would have been so funny if I made Bolty Chan a Cyclops for this episode.
Yeah, you should give him
Oh,
an
that
eye
would be
patch.
so funny. You know how hard it is to edit the live 2D.
No.
No.
I'd have to.
I don't intend on.
It's hard. Take my word for it. Anyway,
Gladly.
so this chapter features an anonymous narrator speaking to Joe Hines and some other guys. They're basically talking shit about Leopold Bloom for 100 pages. Except,
As one does.
I mean, we've been doing it for 11 episodes now. But
Sure, we actually up to 11.
no, we're up to, we did 11 chapters. Actually, well, we did some multi-chapter episodes, but then we
Sagas.
also did some multi-episode chapters. No, we're not up to 11.
Yeah, chapter 10 took like 3 episodes.
Anyway, so interspersed between the shit talking, and by interspersed I actually mean like making up the bulk of the chapter, is these parodies that Joyce does of different writing styles that were popular at the time. So he makes fun of like biblical verses and Irish folk tales and newspaper copy and medical journals. The whole thing is very funny. This was probably my favorite chapter so far. Genuinely humorous and good fun. Especially if you have the annotations to explain what the fuck is going on. It doesn't help a lot, but it does help a little. At least it explains what is being parodied here. So, let's see. 528 here.
We're 100 years removed from the parody.
So, yeah. Well, that's the thing, right? Like, the styles that he is copying were hugely popular at the time. The kind of thing that every reader would be familiar with. To us, it's like, what?
Yeah.
What?
It's like when you try to watch Caddyshack with your parents and you have no idea why any of this is funny.
So for example, I'll get into more detail on this later, but one of them is in a parody of the typical style of a court filing for unpaid debts. So if you were to go into a courthouse,
There's
if
prison.
you were to go into
All
a courthouse in
claims.
Ireland and present in front of what do they call them? Judges? Magistrates? In front of a
I'm thinking
in
magistrate.
front of a magistrate that
their
someone
judges still
owed you
wear
debts
wigs.
and hadn't paid them. There's specific legal verbiage that your barrister would use, right? And Joyce is gonna parody that. Only it's about dicks or something. So
yeah.
anyway, it starts off here with so this first person. The narrator is never named here. No one really knows who that is. Not really relevant. Presumably it is the Cyclops of the chapter. I'm honestly not sure.
I guess that kind of makes as like a funny literary joke, in that he's a first person limited perspective. It's like how a Cyclops only has one eye, so he doesn't have depth perception, so we can't see into the thoughts of the characters.
That's why it's called Cyclops.
So
yeah, it's the kind of joke that appeals to your English teacher, like most of the jokes in here.
Like most of this
it
book.
starts off here with the narrator like walking down the sidewalk, and some guy, a chimney sweep, turns around in front of him and nearly takes his eye out with his chimney sweeping brush.
Is that why he's
Yeah,
the
because
Cyclops?
he almost gets his eye poked out by a broom.
Before I got my eye put out.
And yeah, so there's some narration here. Devil a much, says I. There's a bloody big foxy thief beyond by the garrison church at the corner of Chicken Lane. Old Troy was just giving me a wrinkle about him. Lifted any god's quantity of tea and sugar to pay 3 bob a week. Said he had a farm in the county down off a hop of my thumb by the name of Moses Herzog over there near Hadesbury Street. Circumcised, says Joe. Aye, says I, a bit off the top. So this is a joke, right? So, a bit.
Yeah, that's why we're all laughing.
A bit, laugh. This is funny. So a bit off the top, obviously, like, so circumcised here means Jewish. Moses
Yes.
is a very Jewish name, right? So circumcised means Jewish. But also a bit off the top, other than obviously he's missing a bit of the top of his foreskin. A bit off the top, it refers to like when you've got like cream, right? And the best cream is at the top. So a bit off the top means like the best of the bunch, so to speak. Which is here sarcastic because this is a shitty thief or something. I can't really follow the conversation that's going on account of it's constantly being interrupted by ridiculously long passages of nonsense, like straight up actual nonsense. Makes it very hard to follow what's going on. So we're off to a solid start with some casual anti-Semitism here. As
one does.
So
it is the early.
So we're getting started
century.
here with they're gonna do a lot of ragging at the beginning on this Jewish guy, Moses Herzog. So we've got the first parody starting off here, in the style of a legal filing for unpaid debts. For non-perishable goods bought of Moses Herzog of 13 St. Kevin's Parade in the city of Dublin, Wood Quay Ward, merchant, hereinafter called the vendor, and sold and delivered to Michael E. Girardi, Esquire, of 29 Arbor Hill in the city of Dublin, Aaron Quay Ward, gentleman, hereinafter called the purchaser, Videlicet, 5 pounds avoirdupois of first choice tea, at 3 shillings and no pence per pound avoirdupois. And
it's a unit of measure.
Yeah. It means something in French.
Is videlicet means it is permitted to see.
Okay. Thanks for permission.
It's just
and 3 stones avoirdupois of sugar, crushed.
Avoirdupois.
Doesn't that mean like by weight or something like that?
It's but of a specific type of measurement. That you measure in avoirdupois. When you're dealing with like gold and like merchants. So I don't know, but you use that for like really small measurements. They're like troy weights.
A system of weights based on a pound of 16 ounces or 7,000 grains.
Oh, so it's just a different unit for pounds.
It's weird. We don't do this anymore. We have a much more sensible way of doing things now, where we just sort of agree that
in some places,
Yeah.
Other places use metric. Anyway, 3 stone average. How do you say that? How is that actually?
Avoirdupois.
Avoirdupois.
What the fuck? Alright, Google says it's avoirdupois,
£1,
which is almost certainly wrong. But I guess it's a French word that was filtered through British English. So I'm gonna say avoirdupois because that's really fucking funny. 3 pounds average
British English, you can say
average
diminy,
poise
diminy.
and 3 stones average poise of sugar crushed crystal at 3 pence per pound average poise. The said purchaser debtor to the said vendor of 1 pound 5 shillings and 6 pence sterling for value received, which amount shall be paid by said purchaser to said vendor in weekly installments every 7 calendar days of 3 shillings and no pence sterling. And the said non-perishable goods shall not be pawned or pledged or sold or otherwise alienated by the said purchaser, but shall be and remain and be held to be the sole and exclusive property of the said vendor to be disposed of at his good will and pleasure until the said amount shall have been duly paid by the said purchaser to the said vendor in the manner herein set forth as this day hereby agreed between the said vendor, his heirs, successors, trustees, and assigns of the one part, and the said purchaser, his heirs, successors, trustees, and assigns of the other part. Are you a strict TT, says
Are you
Joe.
good?
TT here short for teetotaler, someone who fully abstains from alcohol. To which
Also
to
known
which
as a fucking nerd.
to which the narrator responds, not taking anything between drinks, says I. Basically saying, I'm a teetotaler when I'm not drunk. Yeah.
When I'm not drinking. Yeah.
So this is the old-fashioned version of the I'm totally sober when I'm not drinking. Yeah.
When I'm not drunk.
What about paying respects to our friends, says Joe. Who, says I. There are, I believe, referencing here, what, Patty Dignam. Dignam.
Yeah, they say it explicitly later. We're talking about that funeral that Bloom was at earlier in the novel. If you can remember, months and months ago when we discussed that, I
It was
can't remember
chapter
yesterday.
6. Bloom goes to the funeral, and sees a guy in a coat. So the dialogue here is like nigh incomprehensible at times. Barney Mavourneen's be it, says I. Anything strange or wonderful, Joe? Not a word, says Joe. I was up at that meeting in the City Arms. Yeah, honestly, I don't even care what they're talking about. They do talk about foot and mouth disease
I don't
again.
think it matters.
That's a recurring theme.
Oh yeah.
Nice.
I couldn't get over that bloody Foxy Girardi, the daylight robber, for trading without a license, says he. So they're arguing about some debts that are going on. Anyway, here's a fun passage. In Innisfail, the fair, lies a land, the land of holy Mikan. There rises a watchtower beheld of men afar. There sleep the mighty dead, as in life they slept, warriors and princes of high renown. A pleasant land it is, in sooth, of murmuring waters, fishful streams, where sport the gurnard, the plaice, the roach, the halibut, the gibbed haddock, the grilsey, the dab. Everyone do a dab. I gotta get arms so I can make them dab.
You can't see
The
it,
halibut,
It's kind of hard to dab in an audio
dab,
only
the
format.
brill, the flounder, the pollock, the mixed coarse fish generally, and other denizens of the aqueous kingdom too numerous to be enumerated. In the mild breezes of the west and of the east, the lofty trees wave in different directions their first-class foliage. The wafty sycamore, the Lebanonian cedar, the exalted plane tree, planet ree, perhaps, the eugenic eucalyptus, and other ornaments of the... I believe that's referring to the fact that eucalyptus is very toxic to other plants around it. Just kill them all dead.
Neat.
The eugenic eucalyptus and the other ornaments of the arboreal world, with which that region is thoroughly well supplied. Lovely maidens sit in close proximity to the roots of the lovely trees, singing the most lovely songs, while they play all kinds of lovely objects, as for example...
Alright, golden ingots, silvery fishes, crayons of herrings, drafts of eels, codlings, creels of fingerlings, purple sea gems, and playful insects. And heroes voyage from afar to woo them. From Eblana to Slivmagie, the peerless princes of unfettered Munster, and of Connacht, the just and smooth, sleek Leinster, and of Cran's land, and of Arbach the splendid, and of the noble district of Boyle, princes, the son of kings.
What the fuck is this section
So
supposed
this
to be
is
parodying?
parodying classic Irish myths. Except
Yeah, that and like
it's just listing
travelogue
fish
from
and
the
trees
colonial area.
and objects. Like, here are some nice objects.
And
Golden
there are
ingots,
fish.
silver
And there are
fish,
trees.
crayons of herrings, drafts of eels. Like, you know what my favorite
Yeah.
object is? Eel.
Eel.
Okay. I don't mind eel. It's good sushi.
And there rises a shining palace whose crystal glittering roof is seen by mariners who traverse the extensive sea in barks built expressly for that purpose. And thither come all herds and fatlings and first fruits of that land, for O'Connell Fitzsimmon takes toll of them, a chieftain descended from chieftains. Thither the extremely large wains bring foison of the fields, flaskets of cauliflowers, floats of spinach, pineapple chunks, Rangoon beans, strikes of tomatoes, drums of figs, drills of sweets, spherical potatoes, and tallies of iridescent kale, York and Savoy,
Oh, my new
and
nickname.
trays of onions, pearls of the earth, and punnets of pearls of the earth. Wait, are pearls of the earth a thing, or are they saying that onions are the pearl of the earth? Pearls?
Hold on, I'll Google that real quick. I was talking about like those little mushrooms.
Pearls of the earth. No, I don't want a book called Pearls of the Earth. What? Lentils, the humble pearls of the earth, according to this 52-minute, 21-second YouTube video. I want to watch a YouTube documentary
lot of
about
minutes.
lentils, the pearl of the earth.
Lent-
Anyway, I don't know if this is referring to any specific thing. I'm gonna assume it's saying that onions are the pearls of the earth.
Apparently, it's also the title of a
Yeah,
romance
that was the
novel.
first thing that came up when I saw it. Punnets of mushrooms, and custard marrows, and fat vetches, and bear, and rape? What? Bear, and rape, and red, green, yellow, brown...
Rapeseed. You've not heard of
I've
rapeseed?
not... Oh, I have heard of
No,
rapeseed, yeah.
It's one of the. It's the thing you giggled at in middle school.
Bear, and rape, and red, green, yellow, brown, russet. Wait, isn't russet like orangish red? Brown?
I think it's. Well, there are more varieties
I
of
know,
potatoes.
russet
back
is
then.
like the color of like a...
No,
Fox.
Ireland.
Or like a dog. Yeah, it's like a orangish, reddish, brownish. Anyway.
Yeah, are you sweet,
Big
bitter,
bitter,
ripe,
ripe,
pomelated
pomelated apple. Yeah, he's just naming the colors of apples. Chips of strawberries and sieves of gooseberries. Pulpy and pelurious, and strawberries fit for princes, and raspberries from their canes. I dare him.
And sloth and breakfast cereals?
Yeah,
Skip ahead a
that's,
bit,
that was
brother.
like the exact vibe that I got. Was that Monty Python line?
Yeah.
I dare him, says he, and I double dare him. Come out here, Girardi. Okay, so we're back to the... For a brief second, they're back to the actual dialogue. Where they're like, come here and fucking fight me, you dickhead. Because this guy, like, owes him money or something, or, like, tried to sue him for owing him money or something like that. And by the way, when the herds innumerable of bellwethers and flushed ewes and shearling rams and lambs and stubble geese and medium steers and roaring mares and polled calves and longwords and store sheep and cuffs prime springers and culls and sow pigs and bacon hogs and the various different varieties of highly distinguished swine and Angus heifers and Polly bullocks of
that's the IA right
immaculate,
there.
immaculate
Highly distinguished
pedigree, together with prime premiated milch cows and beeves. What's a beeve? Beeve.
Is it
No, it's
plural?
Ah,
beaver.
beeves.
I don't think so, because beavers,
No,
beavers aren't in
beeves,
the old
plural
country.
of beef.
Oh,
Of course.
Of course, one. that is-
Fucking
one
with
beef, many
Yeah,
beeves.
exactly.
You are fucking with
Beeves.
me.
And there is ever heard a trampling, cackling, roaring,
And in
lowing,
fact,
bleeding,
giggle,
bellowing, rumbling, grunting, champing, chewing of sheeps and pigs,
Swear on
and
me, Mum.
heavy-hooved kine from pasture lands of Lusk and Rush and Carrick mines, and from the steamy vales of Thomond, from the McGillicuddy creeks, the inaccessible and lordly Shannon the unfathomable.
That was
And
my
from-
nickname in college,
Shannon
actually.
the unfathomable.
Shannon the
D&D
And from the
character.
gentle declivities
that's a
of the
pause.
place of the
That's a
race
minor
of
pause,
Kiar,
man.
their udders distended with superabundance of milk, and butts of butter, and rennets of cheese, and farmers' firkins, and targets of lamb, and crannocks of corn, and oblong eggs in the great hundreds, various in size, the agate with this done.
Okay, Shannon the Unfathomable is like a boss you fight in a D&D campaign set inside of a like JCPenney. Like before you get to like Karen the Invincible, you have to fight Shannon the Unfathomable.
It's the optional side boss. You have to kill her to get the good end. So we.
See,
It
this
is
is
fun. It's
Just
really
listing
fucking
things.
funny.
What Joyce here has discovered here is the Family Guy joke, where if you just keep talking, it becomes funny.
Yeah. So the trend, right, is that throughout the book, Joyce will switch between writing styles depending on who the camera is pointed at. So with Bloom, right, you get these short snippets of thoughts, like surface level, stream of consciousness, wrong thoughts about things, just observations
wrong
of the
things.
surroundings. With Daedalus, you get real long, flowery prose, metaphors about how his mom is dead. With this narrator, you just kind of get walls of garbage. Absolute nonsense.
As opposed to the rest of the book.
Yeah. So the style, the dialogue.
Well, I mean, at least the thing is, the rest of the book, right? You could, if you thought really hard, you could find meaning. I'm not sure what the deep lore is behind oblong egg.
That's how eggs be.
It's true. That
Eggs
it
really
really
do be like
just
that.
be like that.
It's like, yeah, fuck yeah, yeah.
You ever seen a spherical
There are
egg?
some birds that have spherical
Yes.
eggs.
There
They're
are.
bizarre.
Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, if we only talk about chicken eggs, no. But if we talk about the all eggs in existence, yes.
I was gonna say, I think some songbirds have spherical eggs.
Ostrich eggs are round.
Yeah, but ostriches aren't real birds. Okay.
So
I mean, there's no such thing as a real bird.
This
Birds
is
aren't
true.
real.
So the style, the writing style of like the actual dialogue is written at like a 5th grade level. Like, let me just what about paying respects to our friend, says Joe. Who, says I. Sure, he's out in John of God's off his head, poor man. Drinking his own stuff, says Joe. Aye, says I. Whiskey and water on the brain. Come around to Barney Kiernan, says Joe. I want to see the citizen. Barney Mavronines be it, says I. Anything strange or wonderful, Joe? Not a word, says Joe. I was up at that meeting in the City Arms. What was that, Joe? Says I. Cattle traders, says Joe, about the foot and mouth disease. Not really winning any awards for that,
No.
right?
My elementary school teachers would have said, "This is really
Yeah.
boring to read. Use some
Yeah.
different verbs."
Because every line just ends with says, and then the man who says it. Stand and deliver, says he. That's a right, citizen, says Joe. Friends here. Pass, friends, says he. It's just so funny because this is like the worst possible writing you can put in a book. But meanwhile, Joyce is just like dabbing on everyone by doing these parodies of all of the popular styles of the time.
How did he fit through door frames and his fucking
Truly,
lobes were so
the only
huge?
thing bigger than his brain is his testicles. Yeah.
Well, cum is stored in the brain, so.
So,
that tracks.
534. There he is, says I, in his glory hole, with his Kruskeen lawn and his load of papers, working for the cause.
So what is meant by
Um,
glory hole here? And is it actually
Okay,
what
so
the first thing that comes to
according
mind?
to the annotations, a glory hole is a place where odds and ends are put away without order.
That's one way.
I don't know what.
What, like a
So,
knick-knack?
yeah, I'm guessing it's
drawer?
a junk
Yeah, the junk drawer?
I don't know what that means. If you told me that a place where odds and ends are put away without order means a place where you stick your dick to get it sucked off in a truck stop, I'd believe you. Like that seems like an apt fit for the description. Place where odds and ends are put away without order.
Yeah.
Is that actually the etymology of the glory hole as we use it
Junk
today?
drawer?
though?
I don't know. I didn't really want to start Googling this.
Well, I'm going to.
All right, Godspeed.
Yeah, your search your search history is terminally fucked anyway.
My search history cannot get any worse. I mean, it probably can, but in a very different way.
And I
can't
assume
get
they're talking
weirder.
about Bloom here, with because who else is walking around with lots of paper working for the cause?
So there was a guy
assume
going
it's Bloom.
around in chapter 10, I think, with like doing some collection for some fundraiser. I don't really know. Like I said, it's don't get distracted by the actual dialogue. It's not what we're here for.
No.
So they just kind of talk some more. They're just chatting. It's just like some guys chatting. They're talking about wine. Doing the rapparee and
there's
Rory of the Hill, but begob, Joe was equal to the occasion.
Yeah, then there's some neat stuff here where somebody says, "I think markets are on the rise," and someone else goes, "Well, foreign wars is the cause of it." And he's like, oh, "He's not wrong there." Because there's this third character here between Joe, I, and then Citizen.
Yeah.
Which is
Yeah,
real
so
good.
there's just other
'Cause
characters that kind of come in and out throughout the dialogue. And then we get this. So this is another poem. This is in the style of a traditional Irish folk tale that would be the description of some great hero. But the joke here is that instead of describing as some like proud and noble hero of the Irish people, he's just like some ugly ass dude.
So a proud hero
Yeah,
of the Irish
I wasn't
people.
gonna say it, but
I'll fucking do it.
we're gonna get
What's Ireland gonna do?
we're
So what'd you say?
What's Ireland gonna
So,
do
okay,
if
so
I make fun of them? I'm never. I will fight the entire city of Boston.
We'll
and
do
win.
we'll do a quick rerun here. So this next passage is a parody of the kind of Irish poem that would be describing a great folk hero, but instead of describing him as smart and strong and handsome, he's just some ugly ass dude.
Joe Kennedy the Third.
So
Yeah. In my mind, this isn't like the old guy sitting in the corner. It's whatever new iteration of Fail Sons coming out of the Kennedy clan.
yeah, there you go.
Yeah.
The figure seated on a large boulder at the foot of a round tower was that of a broad-shouldered, deep-chested, strong-limbed, frank-eyed, red-haired, freely freckled, shaggy-bearded, wide-mouthed, large-nosed, long-headed, deep-voiced, bare-kneed, brawny-handed, hairy-legged, ruddy-faced, sinewy-armed hero.
Is this character
Yes.
development?
From shoulder to shoulder, he measured several ells, and his rock-like mountainous knees were covered, as was likewise the rest of his body wherever visible, with a strong growth of tawny, prickly hair, in hue and toughness similar to the mountain gorse, Ulex europus. I fucking love that Joyce interrupts the poem to give us the Latin name of the mountain gorse,
A
which
mountain gorse.
is a thorny, flowering shrub. So he's covered in hair like that of the mountain gorse. Ulex europaeus, for those who know it better by its Latin name.
So we
yeah,
can look
give,
it
give
up.
that a Google.
Yeah.
It's a neat looking
Yeah.
bush. The
I
bush.
also like the mention of rock-like mountainous
yes,
kneecaps.
yes.
Or knees, which is reminding me of the giant kneecaps fetish that we discovered some time back.
You didn't have to remind me about that.
The wide-winged nostrils, from which bristles of the same tawny hue projected, were of such capaciousness that within their cavernous obscurity, the field lark might easily have lodged her nest.
That is the best sentence in this
It's
entire
a
book.
good one.
He wants
The
to
eyes
fuck
in
the
which a
kneecaps.
tear and a smile strove ever for the mastery were of the dimensions of a good-sized cauliflower. His eyes were about as big as
murdering
a
this
large
poor man.
cauliflower. A
Is this an anime girl?
yes.
This is the new.
A powerful current of warm breath issued at regular intervals from the profound cavity of his mouth, while in rhythmic resonance, the loud, strong, hail reverberations of his formidable heart thundered rumblingly, causing the ground, the summit of the lofty tower, and still the loftier walls of the cave to vibrate and tremble. So
Someone needs to take this section and like just send it to an
Get it
artist and
commissioned.
commission.
It's good.
Yeah.
So the
Just use your imagination. Just use this as reference.
so Joyce just took like 30 words here
is from
to
the
describe
Pathfinder
that he
campaign, right?
breathes regularly and has a heart that beats.
Yeah.
Well,
He
that's
wore a
good.
long, unsleeved garment of recently flayed oxhide, reaching to his knees in a loose kilt, and this was bound about his middle by a girdle of plaited straw and rushes. Beneath this he wore trews of deerskin, roughly stitched with gut. His nether extremities were encased in high balbriggan buskins, dyed in lichens purple, the feet being shod with brogues of salted cowhide, laced with the windpipe of the same beast. From his girdle hung a row of sea stones, which jangled at every movement of his portentous frame, and on these were graven with rude yet striking art the tribal images of many Irish heroes and heroines of antiquity. He then goes on to list what starts off as a bunch of Irish people who died fighting the British, as I suppose every Irish folk hero did. And then it just gradually gets more and more ridiculous. So, allow me to begin reading the list.
Oh God.
Cuchulainn, Khan of 100 Battles, Niall of 9 Hostages, Brian of Kincora. So these beginning ones are like actual Irish folk heroes. The Ardry Malachi, Art McMurrig, Shane O'Neill, Father John Murphy, Owen Rowe, Patrick Sarsfield, Red Hugh O'Donnell, Red Jim McDermott, Soggarth Johan O'Growney, Michael Dwyer, Francie Higgins, Henry Joy McCracken, Goliath, Horace Wheatley, Thomas Conneff, Peg Woffington, The Village Blacksmith, Captain Moonlight, Captain Boycott, Dante Alighieri, Christopher Columbus, S. Versa, S. Brendan, Marshall McMahon, Charlemagne, Theobald Wolfe Tone, the mother of the Maccabees, the last of the Mohicans, the Rose of Castile, the man for Galway, the man that broke the bank at Monte Carlo, the man in the Gap. Okay, so here's a good one. Let's play a game of encoding error or stylistic choice. The woman who didn't and hashtag X 2019 semicolon T.
Is this Elon Musk's other
I
kid?
think he wrote that one.
Elon Musk's great
I believe this
grandfather.
is an improperly parsed escape code for an asterisk. But who knows? Benjamin Franklin,
It's one of those
Napoleon
stupid fucking
Bonaparte,
asterisks.
John L. Sullivan, Cleopatra, Savornin D. Lish,
Man, Napoleon
Julius
Bonaparte.
Caesar, Paracelsus,
Have you guys-
Sir Thomas Lipton.
Have you guys listened? Hold on, I'm gonna interrupt you because I've got a good joke for this. Have you guys listened to the new Neil
I
Cicerega
heard
album?
the first 40 minutes of it, had to go to bed, and didn't remember to listen to the rest of it.
Did you get to the part where it gets to the announcer voice and he just
Yes.
found the clips of the same announcer from like 15 different movies and he all just spliced them together?
Yeah,
It's like
one
The
of the-
Outsiders, Pony
Yeah.
Boy,
Yeah,
My
I
left
do remember
foot.
that.
Ruth Bader Ginsburg. This is
Yeah.
that. This is that. Just 100 years earlier. There is nothing new.
Where was I? William Tell, Michelangelo Hayes, Muhammad, the Bride of Lammermoor,
Must be a pun.
Peter the Hermit, Peter the Packer, Dirk Rosaline, Patrick W. Shakespeare, Brian Confucius, Murtagh Gutenberg, Patricio Velasquez, Captain Nemo, Tristan and Isolde, the first Prince of Wales, Thomas Cook and Son, the Bold Soldier Boy, Ara Napog, Dick Turpin, Ludwig Beethoven, the Colleen Bawn, Wadler Healy, Angus the Coldy, Dolly Mount, Sydney Parade, Ben Houth, Valentine Great Rakes, Adam and Eve, Arthur Wellesley, Boss Croker, Herodotus, Jack the Giant Killer.
Herodotus.
It's Herodotus.
Sure, whatever.
I'm not sure if he was just. Is that a joke? Is that a joke about Herodotus, or is he just putting him in for?
Just in
Guadama Buddha, Lady Godiva, the Lily of Killarney, Balor of the Evil Eye, Queen of Sheba, Aki Nagel, Joe Nagel, Alessandro Volta, Jeremiah
Nagel,
O'Donovan
Nagel.
Rassa, Don Philippe O'Sullivan Bier. So if you forgot where this list of names started, these are the names of the people that are carved onto the seashells that are worn on the belt of our the subject of our poem here.
Guy.
So let me go through the annotations here, and pick out some notable mentions here.
Yeah, pick up
so
some of the choice ones.
obviously,
Because in my mind, I'm reading these with like the announcer voice for like at
Yeah.
the baseball game.
this is
coming up to the mound.
this is like if you remember Key and Peele's college football name skit. This is that. So like I said at the beginning here, there's a whole bunch of people that died fighting revolutions against the Irish. And then you got
the
Goliath
Prophet
of biblical fame,
Peace be upon him.
Horace Wheatley, who is a popular mime in the 1890s. Tanis Conneff, no one knows who that is or who that's supposed to be. Peg Woffington, a famous stage actress from the 18th century. Captain Moonlight. So this is Captain Moonlight was I forget what they call it. It's a
Like a
so
folk
it's a
character?
pen name, but it's a name that was used by a whole bunch of different people. So in the 19th century, England was basically raping the Irish by taking away the ability for the Irish to own their own land and forcing them to get it from English landlords.
Probably
Yeah,
also,
also literally, yeah. So,
Also
which
literally.
led
Absolutely
to
literally.
the Irish
Definitely
potato
literally.
famine. But that's an episode. That's a story for another episode. Anyway, so Captain Moonlight, people would write letters protesting and threatening violent action against this English policy, and they would sign it Captain Moonlight. Dante Alighieri,
Like saying-
of Inferno fame, inventor
I was gonna
of
say that.
the self-insert fanfiction. Charlemagne. So Charlemagne, famous king,
Jesus
and
Island.
later like
Charlemagne.
Roman emperor, I think.
Declared Roman Emperor by the
Yeah,
Pope,
honorary
despite not
Roman
being
Empire
Roman.
emperor.
Technically,
From
yeah,
like the
effectively the first emperor of the Holy Roman
century,
Empire.
9th century, something like that. He was Frankish,
8th century.
not to be confused with
7th
French.
century?
But apparently, traditionally, the Celts just considered him an honorary Celt. Because he was just a cool dude.
He did also kind of like destroy them
Yeah.
in combat.
The Last of the Mohicans. Titular character
The book.
of the book, Last of the Mohicans.
I was gonna say that's a book I read when I was a kid.
Yeah, so several of these are like the names of they're fictional characters, or they're literally like titles of books. Like The Bold Soldier Boy. What Bold Soldier Boy was a folk song about a bold soldier boy. Dolly Mount is a village in Ireland. Sydney Parade is a street in
Okay.
Dublin. And Ben Howth is a hill
Okay.
located northeast of Dublin.
Okay, so he's also making fun of what things
Yeah.
are called in that part of the world.
Anyway, back to this wonderful prose. A couched spear of acuminated granite rested by him, while at his feet reposed a savage animal of the canine tribe, whose stertorous gasps announced that he was sunk in uneasy slumber. So dogs are kind of a recurring theme in this chapter, I guess, in that dogs are mentioned multiple times. A supposition confirmed by hoarse growls and spasmodic movements, which his master repressed from time to time by tranquilizing blows of a mighty cudgel, rudely fashioned out of Paleolithic stone. So,
Beating his dog
yeah,
with a fucking
beating
brick.
his dog
Jesus.
with a stone cudgel for squirming in its sleep. So anyhow, Terry brought the 3 pints Joe was standing and he got the so
That
this
was normal
fucking
back then. It was
killed
just
me
how people trained
because
their
you've
dog.
got 2 pages of this, and then Joyce is like, so anyhow. So Terry
So
comes
anyway.
back with the pints of booze.
Meanwhile,
Because they were talking about, I guess they're at a pub and they're talking about like the boozes that they wanted to get. So anyhow, Terry brought the 3 pints
Fucking
Joe
whiplash.
was standing, and begob the sight nearly left my eyes when I saw him land out a quid. Oh, as true as I'm telling you, a good-looking sovereign. And there's more where that came from, says he.
Back to
Yeah, and then it's just some more nonsense dialogue. Page 540 here. So let me pull up the annotations for this. Because the annotations pull a Joyce. And
Oh,
dump
good.
an entire, like, massive passage explaining what's going on with what they're talking about on this page. Let me pull that up.
This sounds like more just politics stuff,
Annotations.
which is, probably
Page
more interesting at the
3.
time than it is now. That we're soon to be back to just one Ireland.
Here we go. Yeah, so here's our fucking annotations. The pledge-bound party on the floor of the House. Yeah, so this is some politics stuff, which I'll be honest, I don't really care enough to understand what they're talking about. I just think it's really funny that, wow, that's a lot of annotation. Yeah, so this is just some politics. And then so there's that, right? And then and then they talk about the names. So he's reading the part of the newspaper that talks about, like, the notable marriages, births, and deaths. Gordon, Barnfield Crescent. Exeter, Redmayne of Iffley. St. Anne's on the Sea. The wife of William T. Redmayne of a son. How's that, eh? Wright and Flint. Vincent and Gillett to Rotha Marion, daughter of Rosa, and the late George Alfred Gillett. 179 Clapham Road, Stockwell. Playwood and Risdale at St. Jude's, Kensington, by the Very Reverend Dr. Forrest, Dean of Worcester. Deaths. Bristow at Whitehall Lane, London. Carr, Stoke Newington, of gastritis and heart disease. Cockburn at the Moat House, Chepstow. So there's some joke going on here where he's skipping over the Irish names of people and reading off the English names of people. This is apparently an actual. So he's reading from an actual print of Irish Daily Independent, printed 16th of June, 1904. Presumably Joyce just, like, found this lying around in his house. Which is actually kind of impressive, because wasn't this written in, like, 1918? Yeah, so he... good on him for digging up an old newspaper.
So he had to, like, actually... He had to look up an actual period.
He must have like gone to the library or something, found the archive for it. Anyway, so there's I guess some significance in the fact that he skipped over all of the Irish names in the newspaper, and is only reading the English names. But in order to understand this, let me be clear. Okay, in order to understand the fact that he has skipped over some names, you would have needed to figure it out that this was reading from the June 16th, 1904 edition of the Irish Daily Independent, which is not said anywhere. Now, you can infer, right, by the date that this took place, because it is a known
and that day. He says,
but
right, if you look at the blasted rag, and he still says, listen to the births and deaths in the Ireland Independent, and I'll thank you in the marriages. And I think it's kind of hinted at, like, we don't know in 2020 that this was a real newspaper that existed.
Could you imagine someone, like, I wonder what he's talking about. Let me walk down to the local library and ask the poor archivist to retrieve me this specific day of this specific newspaper from 14 years ago. Yeah.
And that would have been impossible to do if you weren't in Ireland.
Anyway, so Cockburn, this is pretty fun, right? So Cockburn, obvious haha joke, his cock is burning. So Cockburn is an English name, pronounced Coburn. But Cockburn was also slang for syphilis, on account of it was the disease that made your cock burn. It's like
makes sense.
So that's pretty funny.
That's quite
the joke being that he died. It's unclear from the reading whether Coburn died at the Moat House or whether someone died of cockburn at the Moat House.
That's fun.
And then even better, Cockburn at the Moat House. I know that fellow, says Joe from bitter experience. Cockburn. Dimsey, wife of David Dimsey, late of the Admiralty. Yeah, so he's like, Cockburn. Yeah, I know that guy. All right. The joke being that that he
He's
is
weaving
familiar
such
with
intricate
venereal
lore.
disease.
Also, related to slang, I did find one article discussing the derivation of the
Oh,
term
great!
glory
Lay it
hole,
on me.
and
Thank God.
it does suggest that basically, in the 1820s, glory hole was slang for a junk drawer, as we previously established. Later, by the 1930s, it comes up as a slang term for a nickname for vagina,
Okay.
as in the place
Right.
you put your junk.
Sensible.
And then from there, by the late 1940s, becomes what we know it is today, a hole in like a bathroom stall to stick your dick
Presumably, they started calling the
Um,
holes after a word for vagina, but then the slang for vagina
Yeah.
moved on, and the slang for glory hole was left as sort of a fossil of the era.
stuck around, and because like, well, that's obviously what it is because it's a
Yeah.
hole.
Oh,
And
dear.
this article suggests a through line for these terms, though it provides no strong sources saying that this is how it
Well,
is.
it's plausible enough for
Well, it's
me.
the internet. You can just make stuff up.
Yeah. But
It sure
works.
does. Actually, that is some fun
And then
etymology.
they all
Oh, you
drink.
know what? I should have known. I should have grabbed my my slang dictionary off the shelf. I forgot I had that. Anyway, where were we?
Was that one
the
of your
drinking.
random
Yeah,
Goodwill
it's actually good.
purchases?
It's a pretty good slang dictionary for like a whole bucko.
Yeah. They're
Yeah,
all
so they're getting their
drinking.
booze, and then I love this so much. So
And low.
and sorry, ow, oh, don't be talking. I was blue moldy for the want of that pint. Declare to God I could hear it hit the pit of my stomach with a click. And lo, as they quaffed their cup of joy, a godlike messenger came swiftly in, radiant as the eye of heaven, a comely youth, and behind him there passed an elder of noble gait and countenance, bearing the sacred scrolls of law, and with him his lady wife, a dame of peerless lineage, fairest of her race. So there's like this angelic choir singing out as they get their pints of beer at the pub.
Has there been like an adaptation of Ulysses into like
There have
a
been
movie or something?
multiple
There's been a
attempts
couple.
to do it as a screenplay, as a movie, and I believe as like a television like short series.
You might be able to do a short television series.
It's
Yeah.
Pitch it to Netflix. They'll
yeah,
buy
so
anything.
know that.
I say attempted, right, because
like definitely not a
it is absolutely impossible to do an adaptation of Ulysses because it
right,
is
like,
it's the kind of thing that really only works in written form.
if for no other reason than several of the jokes literally only make sense in a
Yeah.
textual medium.
Yeah. And all these like fun descriptions go away if you just take a picture of them.
Yeah.
Like just if even if in like a movie, if it cuts to like a fantasy sequence of the old like guy in the corner in the style of an ancient Irish folklore, you kind of loses the joke of having to sit through and read through several pages of this
I
shit.
think it would actually.
It should be a test for. It should be a test for any director / screenplay writer to basically attempt to direct Ulysses, but the only correct answer is
Yeah, it's the
don't.
Kobayashi Maru of screenwriting school. It would be fun when all this is over to watch some of the, or at least one of the adaptations.
attempts.
Anyway,
Wait, they actually tried?
There's a movie in the 50s. There's some radio versions. There's a stage play.
Radio version
Those
makes
idiots.
sense.
yeah, you could definitely
There's
do
a
it.
modern version.
I mean, that's basically an audiobook.
Yeah, that's what audiobooks were before Audible swallowed up the entire market. It was just BBC Two radio plays.
So they're drinking and they're talking about this guy, Dennis Breen.
The ancestor of Wallace Breen?
Or Neil Breen.
he's traipsing all around Dublin
Fateful
with a
findings,
postcard
boss.
someone sent him with UP up on it. So if you recall,
Alright, we reached middle school humor.
yeah. So
What happened?
back in one of the much earlier chapters, Bloom was walking around town, and he talked to this lady whose husband has apparently gone off. Is known to be an eccentric kook. So someone emailed him someone mailed him a postcard. What's that thing? It's email, but like with the real letters that like you put in the email box. The email
mail.
box that's at the end of the driveway. What do you call that? Is there a word for that?
Western Union telegram.
So they faxed him this postcard. That just
Using the teletype machine.
just read UP up.
Telex.
As just this
Ladies.
absolutely harmless prank. Right? The joke being presumably that you read it out loud. UP up. what does that mean? And the middle schoolers nearby have a giggle.
Yeah. Or in our case, the like 20-something college students and grads.
This is literally a Bart
Yes.
Simpson prank.
But
Yeah.
so in response to this
Don't have a
postcard,
cow, man.
the guy went totally ballistic and was just running all over town, ranting and raving about this, trying to find
What the fuck did you just
trying to
fucking say
find a
about me, you little
barrister
bitch?
that would
Tell them I'm not mad. You can tell them I'm not mad.
so he's trying to find someone that'll take this libel case which I believe was for some ridiculous. It was like £2 million in damages, was what he was claiming.
Oh, that's some Peter
so
Thiel
they're
shit.
just talking about that again. £10,000.
the
There we
fucking
go.
rich guy that
Libel
got
action
Gawker
says
shut
he
down?
for £10,000, which is probably roughly like $2 million back then, accounting for inflation. Something I have no fucking idea.
This is Elon Musk like suing the guy
Yeah,
and calling him
yeah.
pedo guy.
The bloody mongrel began to growl that he'd put the fear of God in you, seeing something was up, but the citizens gave him a kick in the ribs. So I don't know, they keep describing people as dogs, but also they talk about actual dogs. It's just kind of a thing that comes back. Yeah, so they're all just laughing at this guy who, instead of just having like a good-natured chuckle at this prank letter that he got and throwing it in the throwing it in the trash, is instead just running all over town, waving this around
Sir, please stop spamming in
to
general.
to everyone that like is subject to this, which only makes everyone laugh at him.
Yeah.
It's
funny
really
as
funny,
hell.
yeah. They talk about Long John, who is like the sheriff or whatever.
Oh, you get to the best part of the chapter when they talk about a guy
Yeah.
who's hung.
So, we've got some more divine depictions of booze. Terrace Orion heard him and straight away brought him a crystal cup full of the foamy ebon ale, which the noble twin brothers Bungavig and Bungardelon brew in their divine ale vats. Cunning as the sons of deathless Leda, for they garner the succulent berries of the hop, and mass, and sift, and bruise, and brew them, and they mix therewith sour juices, and bring the must to the sacred fire, and cease not night or day from their toil, those cunning brothers, lords of the vat. Then did you, chivalrous
Oh, yeah.
Terence, hand forth, as to the manner born, that nectarous beverage, and you offered the crystal cup to him that thirsted, the soul of chivalry, in beauty akin to the immortals. But he, the young chief of the O'Bergens, could ill brook to be outdone in
so
generous deeds, but gave therefore with gracious gesture a testoon of costliest bronze. Thereon embossed in excellent smithwork was seen the image of a queen of regal port, scion of the House of Brunswick, Victoria her name, her most excellent majesty by grace of God of the United Kingdoms of Great Britain and Ireland and of the British dominions beyond the sea, queen, defender of the faith, Empress of India, even she who bore rule a victress over many peoples, the well-beloved, for they knew and loved her from the rising of the sun to the going down thereof, the pale, the dark, the ruddy, the Ethiop. Whatever that means.
Dudes
Again,
to rock
they're
in
just
this chapter.
describing someone being given a new pint of ale. What's the bloody Freemason doing, says the citizen, prowling up and down outside. So there's just some guy out on the street, walking back and forth. Honest Injun.
Says Alf.
That's racist. Don't say that. That was historically considered an oxymoron. So he's got these letters. I don't really know what the letters are exactly, but he's got these letters, and they're like, let me see the letters, and he won't do it. And then he's like, hey, did you hear Patty's dead? I'm like, what? Patty's dead. What? Patty's dead.
Huh?
Who's dead?
Patty. Combat.
What?
Who's the Patty? And the Patty.
Just
Yeah, because Alf is confused.
I don't know,
Alf
says
is here,
Elf.
by
I
the
saw
way.
him just
I
now
know
in
he's
Capitol
not-
Street with Patty Dignam, only I was running after that. You what? You saw him with who? With Dignam, says Elf. Is it Patty, says Joe. Yes, says Elf. Why? Don't you know he's dead, says Joe. Patty Dignam's dead, says Elf. Says Joe. Sure, I'm after seeing him not 5 minutes ago, says Elf, as plain as a pikestaff. Who's dead, says Bob Doran. You saw his ghost then, says Joe. God between us and harm. What, says Elf. Good Christ, only 5, what? And Willie Murray with him, the two of them near what-do-you-call-ems. What? Dignam's dead. What about Dignam, says Bob Doran. Who's talking about? Dead, says Elf. He's no more dead than you are. It may be so, says Joe. They took the liberty of burying him this morning anyhow. Patty, says Elf. Aye, says Joe. He paid the debt of nature. God be merciful to him. Good Christ, says Elf. Be God, he was what you might call flabbergasted.
Christ indeed.
And then they go on
So
to,
good.
let me consult my notes here. So this is a parody of a scientific report as written by a theosophist, which was kind of like a modern of the time. It was like a modernist, like it was an attempt. It's hard to explain because Wikipedia uses some confusing words for it.
I like your funny words, Magic Man.
But the Theosophy movement was like the belief that any number of spiritual
I think
ecstasy.
we came across this before.
Basically, it was like a deist, like empiricalist mysticism movement. The belief that the occult and mysticism and religion could be objectively understood through modern scientific means.
Yeah, hold on.
Also,
Let me just
that
drop this
logo.
Yeah. Let me just drop this logo in chat because, like, nowadays it is cursed on like 20,000 levels.
Yeah. The cultural baggage on this
baby.
on the symbols here have just built up for the ultimate culmination.
Like, if I saw this now, I would assume that that person is part of some like Nazi death cult.
Whoever is wearing this has several problems.
Yeah, there you go. There is.
Much to think about.
Yeah.
Yeah, so you got a weird turn
So
of the
it
century
was just
occult.
basically it was an occult club.
syncretic
It was a
faith
bunch of
thing.
educated
Yeah.
intellectuals with an interest in the occult, trying to understand it through the scientific method. So
So like basically the Freemasons, if they were also fucking
Yeah,
nerds.
yeah. It's like if the Freemasons were a D&D club.
Yeah, with a bit of Skull and Bones and like fucking Bohemian Grove shit.
Anyway, I will now read this prose. In the darkness, spirit hands were felt to flutter, and when prayer by tantras had been directed to the proper quarter, a faint but increasing luminosity of ruby light became gradually visible, the apparition of the etheric double being particularly lifelike owing to the discharge of jivic rays from the crown of the head and face. Communication was effected through the pituitary body and also by means of the orange, fiery, and scarlet rays emanating from the sacral region and solar plexus. Questioned by his Earth name as to his whereabouts in the heaven world, he stated that he was now on the path of Perlia, or return, but was still submitted to trial at the hands of certain bloodthirsty entities on the lower astral levels. In reply to a question as to his first sensations in the Great Divide Beyond, he stated that he previously had seen as in a glass darkly, but those who had passed over had summit possibilities of atmic development opened up to them. Interrogated as to whether life there resembled our experience in the flesh, he stated that he had heard from more favorable beings now in the spirit that their abodes were equipped with every modern home comfort such as telephana, elevator, hata kalda, water closet, and that the highest adepts were steeped in waves of volupcy at the very purest nature. So,
Is that a fucking pun?
it was a belief by the Theosophists that Sanskrit was the highest of all languages and naturally would be the language of mysticism and the afterworld. So these are just words as they would be written in Sanskrit. Telephana, telephone. Elevator, elevator. Hata kalda, hot and cold, running water. Water closet. Yeah.
Water closet, which is what they call bathrooms in the Europe lands, in their shithole European countries with their stinky castles.
Having requested a quart of buttermilk, this was brought and evidently afforded relief. Asked if he had any message for the living, he exhorted all who were still at the wrong side of Maya to acknowledge the true path, for it was reported in Devonic circles that Mars and Jupiter were out for mischief on the eastern angle where the ram has power. It was then queried whether there were any special desires on the part of the defunct, and the reply was, "We greet you, friends of Earth, who are still in the body. Mind CK doesn't pile it on." It was ascertained that the reference was to Mr. Cornelius Kelleher, manager of Messrs. H.G. O'Neill's popular funeral establishment, a personal friend of the defunct who had been responsible for the carrying out of the interment arrangements. Before departing, he requested that it should be to his dear son Patsy that the other boot which he had been looking for was present under the commode in the return room, and that the pair should be sent to Cullen's to be sold only as the heels were still good. So, tell my son that the boot he's looking for is under the shitter, and that he should send them to be resold only as the heels do not need to be replaced. He stated that this had greatly perturbed his peace of mind in the other region, and earnestly requested that his desire should be made known. Imagine being dead, and all you can think about is how your son needs to find the missing boot and have the soles replaced, but not the heels, because, like I said, the heels are fine. Don't pay for new heels. He's gonna tell you need new heels. He's just trying to get your money. Assurances were given that the matter would be attended to, and it was intimated that this had given satisfaction. He is gone from mortal haunts, O Dignum, son of our morning. Fleet was his foot on the bracken. Patrick of the beamy brow. Wail, Bonba, with your wind, and wail, O ocean, with your whirlwind. As one does. There he is, says the citizen, staring out. Who, says I. Bloom, says he. He's on pointy duty. Point duty. Up and down there for the last 10 minutes. So Bloom's been walking back and forth. I think he's, like, trying to get people to sign off to donate to a fundraiser or something. Not really sure. And begob, I saw his physog do a peep in and then slitter off again. Physog here is short for physiognomy, I believe, which was slang for face.
You know, why not?
Why
If the
would
slang is longer than the word you're doing, then why do
Yeah,
it?
using Latin terms as slang.
Look,
Like-
these are from the same people that brought
Okay.
you rhyming slang, okay?
It's also from the same writer that brought you
Yeah.
Ulysses.
Yeah, well, you know.
Is that actually Latin? I don't know. It sounds.
Physiognomy is
No, I mean, if they're
from
well, they're
the
Irish,
Latin.
they're not going to be doing Cockney rhyming slang.
Oh, there's a throwback to an old meme from the Latin. Remember that
What?
one?
That. I think that was before.
That was like our freshman year of college, yeah.
Yeah, that is really old.
Um,
Before Brandon or CJ were.
the
were
joke is that
MBIA.
you would say from the Latin before giving a totally made up etymology of some phrase.
Peak
It
humor.
was funny at the time.
Yeah.
It was funny for like a week, and then we moved
I mean,
on to
is
other memes.
Is it any less funny than what's thing that isn't updog? Nothing much. What's thing that isn't updog with you?
Yes. Anyway, I'll tell you what it's not as funny as. Elf saying, "I beg your
The
parsnips."
products and services that support this program.
What's a? I beg your.
Our
Beg your
sponsor.
parsnips. Is that a good Christ, says Bob Doran, to take away poor little Wiley Dignam. Anyway, this just kind of goes on for a while. They're just, they're talking.
They're just
they're
talking
talking.
about life and some death and about, you know, about Patty and whatnot. And then Bloom skeezes around the door. Bottom of 549, folks. Old Gary Owen starts growling again at Bloom. That was skeezing around the door. Come on in. Don't he want you to says the citizen? So Bloom slopes in with his cod's eye on the dog, and he asks Cherry where was Martin Cunningham there.
So a cod's eye is
and-
slang for, like, fool's eye, according to the annotations. Joyce uses this phrase
Yeah.
several times throughout the chapter. I don't know if there's any sort of symbology or if he just heard it and thought it was a fun thing to say.
Yeah.
What's a fool's eye?
The eye of a fool. Yeah, like I don't know. Like what
just
is it?
literally.
Yeah. Anyway,
That sounds like something that would be a weird kind of slang, but no, I think he's talking about the
Yeah.
eye of a fool.
Also, are we just going to keep leaving this very interesting logo up on the screen this whole time?
Oh, good. It'll attract an audience.
I'm not sure that's the audience
know
we want.
You know they're not actual Nazis because the center is literally a
yeah.
star.
Well,
of
also
David.
this is the that's more of a Hindu swastika.
and then
Yes.
and then,
The curvy
and then up
bits.
at the
It's the
top,
wrong
you've
angle.
got the what's it called?
Yeah.
Yeah. Also, the swastika isn't rotated. Yeah, you're right.
It's also
I-
doesn't. It's also hollow inside.
Well,
It's also got English text saying exactly what the organization that it belongs to is all about. So that should probably clear up any misunderstandings. But
Yeah.
I know
We can only
a
hope.
lot.
We
I
can
know it's a
only
lot
hope.
to ask the average Twitch viewer. To
I don't think
read.
the average Twitch viewer is here for a let's read of James Joyce's Ulysses. If you are the average Twitch
Would be
viewer
if you
and you
called it anything besides the words book.
if you
club.
are the average Twitch viewer and you are just here for a let's read of James Joyce's Ulysses, I'm sorry. Why are you here? Are you lost?
We're not going to help you pass your English class.
It's just him.
We're not. Yeah. I think we now get to more literary parody.
So this
Or-
is
I-
hang on. This is less literary parody and more just like because he's reading from a letter, he has it written as a letter. Specifically, this is
Okay.
a letter written by a hangman to the High Sheriff of Dublin. Dublin. I like how it's addressed. 7 Hunter Street, Liverpool. High Sheriff of Dublin, Dublin. In case there was any confusion about where the High Sheriff of Dublin is.
You
Look,
never know.
Look, there were 2 Sicilies, so that you gotta be.
I'm so mad about Second Sicily. Furious.
So is the rest of Italy.
Yeah, you want to read this letter here?
Yeah, I'll take it. To the High Sheriff of Dublin, Dublin. Honored sir, I beg to offer my services. The above-mentioned painful case, I hanged Joe Gann in Boodle Jail On the 12th of February, 1900,
Show us,
I
Joe,
hanged
says I.
Private Arthur Chase for foul murder of Jesse Tilsit in Pentonville Prison, and I was
Jesus,
assistant
says
when
I.
Billington executed the awful murder.
The citizen
Toad
made a
Smith.
grab at the letter. Hold hard, says Joe.
I have a special knack of putting the noose on in. You can't get out of hoping to be favored, I remain. Honored sir, my terms is 5 guineas. Each rumbled
I guess
master barber.
he's like submitted a job application to be hangman for High Sheriff of Dublin, Dublin. I'm not really sure.
I think so. That's his resume. There's CV.
Cover
that's what
letter.
they call it in that part of the world.
And then they get on to, so they're talking about executions. Are they talking about?
And
Yeah,
then
so-
they start haggling with Bloom, and then Bloom finds a
So
cigar.
they've got another literary parody here. This one is parodying both Bible verse. Oh no, the webcam
Oh.
fell over.
No. Oh no. Billy Chan is dead.
Thankfully, he can't turn more than like 45 degrees, so you didn't see him do a sick flip. Anyway, okay, yeah. So parodying both like classic romance stories and Bible verses. In the dark land they bide, the vengeful knights of the razor. Their deadly coil they grasp, yeah, and therein they lead to Erebus. Whatsoever wight hath done a deed of blood, for I will on no wise suffer it even so, saith the Lord. So they started talking about capital punishment, and of course Bloom comes at... Wait. What? Okay, I thought for a second that I had a stroke and had just started reading from my notes, because, like, that's how I write my notes. So then they start talking about capital punishment, and then Bloom. No, this is actually what they're saying. Comes out with the why
Yeah, the
and the
narrator
wherefore.
here.
Okay, so they're talking about how they were talking about how, because the narrator is recounting a conversation that he had. So the conversation was about how this guy was talking to Bloom about how hangmen get an erection. Not hangmen. Well, the hangmen get an erection too. But the hangs get an erection.
Hold on.
Uh,
You can't pin that on them.
As we dance to
hard
the
at
masochism tango.
He's hard at work.
So they start talking about capital punishment, and of course, Bloom comes out with the why and the wherefore, and all the. So they're making fun of Bloom for explaining things, and all the codology of the business, and the old dog smelling them all the time. I'm told those Jewies have a sort of queer odor coming off them for the dogs. About I don't know what all the deterrent effect and
Alrighty
so
then.
forth and so on. There's one thing it hasn't a deterrent effect on, says Elf. What's that, says Joe. The poor bugger's tool that's being hanged, says Elf. That's so, says Joe. God's truth, says Elf. I heard that from the head warder that was in Kilmainham when they hanged Joe Brady, the Invincible. He told me when they cut him down after the drop, it was like standing up in their faces like a poker. Ruling passion strong in death, says Joe, as someone says. That can be explained by science, says Bloom. It's only a natural phenomenon, don't you see, because on account of the... And then he starts with his jawbreakers about phenomenon and science and this phenomenon and the other phenomenon. And then they cut into a parody of an article that would be published in a medical journal. Only this one is about... what's the... In articulo mortis per diminutionem capitis.
Yes.
Which is Latin for as a result of dying from having your neck broken. The distinguished scientist, Herr Professor Luitpold Blumenduft, tendered medical evidence to the effect that the instantaneous fracture of the cervical vertebra and the consequent scission of the spinal cord would, according to the best approved tradition of medical science, be calculated to inevitably produce in the human subject a violent ganglionic stimulus of the nerve centers of the genital apparatus. thereby causing the elastic pores of the corpora cavernosa to rapidly dilate in such a way as to instantaneously facilitate the flow of blood to that part of the human anatomy known as the penis, or male organ, resulting in the phenomenon which has been denominated by the faculty a morbid upwards and outwards philoprogenitive erection in articulo mortis per diminutionem capitis.
Mortis.
So of course the citizen...
Remember to call a doctor if it lasts for more than
So of course
4
the
hours.
citizen was only waiting for the wink of the word, and he starts gassing out of him about the Invincibles and the Old Guard and the men of 67, who fears to speak of 98, and Joe with him about all the fellows that were hanged, drawn, and transported for the cause by drumhead court-martial, and a New Ireland, and new this, that, and the other, talking about New Ireland he ought to go and get a new dog, so he ought. Mangy, ravenous brute, sniffing and sneezing all round the place and scratching his scabs, and around he goes to Bob Doran that was standing alpha half one sucking up for what he could get, so of course Bob Doran starts doing the bloody fool with him.
Give us the paw, doggy. Good old doggy. It's so good.
It
is
is
chapter.
very
I'm
fun.
having
I really
here.
enjoyed this one.
Yeah.
So then they're talking
I'm
about
glad
dogs,
I'm
but then they go
completely
from talking
phoning it
about
in here.
dogs, talking about a guy who they're describing as a dog. Also, knock me down cigar, putting on swank with his lardy face. Phenomenon! The fat heap he married is a nice old phenomenon with a back on her like a ball alley. So they're making fun of
Nice.
Bloom's wife for having a back on her like a ball alley. So I assume here that back means ass. Ball alley refers to a handball court, which was popular in Ireland, which kind of looks like, if you imagine a tennis court, only it doesn't have the net thing in the middle, and instead just has fences all around the sides and the top to keep the ball from escaping. So, hang on, let me get a picture of a ball alley. Ball alley.
Like a
It
racquetball
looks,
court.
yeah,
or a
it
squash
looks
court.
much like a racquetball or a squash court.
Oh, I figured this was some sort of like everyone comes and throws their
Yeah,
balls.
so I don't know what the
joke.
joke is here. Here's a picture
Hey,
of a
man.
traditional, yeah, it's like her ass is shaped like this. Like,
Hey man, if you got it, come on it.
she's got an ass like a handball court. What does that mean?
Hard and flat, and you bounce your balls
I
off it?
don't know. What does that
Mhm.
mean?
That sounds like a ye olde
It's-
dirty
it's-
joke. I'm going with
It's
that.
gotta be.
Yeah, absolutely. We're doing misogyny by reading, but the misogyny is so old, you can't tell how it's offensive.
I just know that I should be upset right now. Yeah.
They were stopping about the city arms pisser and cracked luderhams and mollycoddles and bezeeks and wampums and
Lewd Kuramon of a nephew, and Bloom trying to get the soft side of her doing the mollycoddle, playing Bazik to come in for a bit of the wampum in her will and not eating meat of a Friday because the old one was always thumping her craw and talking the loud out for a walk. The prose is fun. I have no idea what they're speaking.
No, it's great. And it's so out there, I'm not even going to try to read
Yeah,
anything
no,
into
just-
it.
Just have fun with it. Anyway, so then they get on to another parody. So this parody is in the style of the way that newspapers would report on popular social events. Only this time the social event in question is the public execution of Irish Republican and rebel Robert Emmet. The last farewell was affecting in the extreme. From the belfries far and near, the funereal death bell tolled unceasingly, while all around the gloomy precincts rolled the ominous warning of 100 muffled drums, punctuated by the hollow booming of pieces of ordnance. The deafening claps of thunder and the dazzling flashes of lightning, which lit up the ghastly scene, testified that the artillery of heaven had lent its supernatural pomp to the already gruesome spectacle. A torrential rain poured
Blade
down
of
from the
heaven.
floodgates of the angry heavens upon the bared heads of the assembled multitude, which numbered at the lowest computation 500,000 persons. A posse of Dublin Metropolitan Police, superintended by the Chief Commissioner in person, maintained order in the vast throng, for whom the York Street Brass and the Reed Band whiled away the intervening time by admirably rendering on their black-draped instruments the matchless melody endearing to us from the cradle by Speranza's plaintive muse. Special quick excursion trains and upholstered charabancs have been provided for the comfort of our country cousins, of whom there were large contingents. Considerable amusement was caused by favorite Dublin street singers, Lonahan and Mulligan, who sang "The Night Before Larry" was stretched in their usual mirth-provoking fashion. Our two inimitable drolls did a roaring trade with their broadsheets among lovers of the comedy element, and nobody who has a corner in his heart for real Irish fun without vulgarity will grudge them their hard-earned pennies. The children of the male and female Foundling Hospital, who thronged the windows overlooking the scene, were delighted with this unexpected addition to the day's entertainment, and a word of praise is due to the Little Sisters of the Poor for their excellent idea of affording the poor fatherless and motherless children a genuinely instructive treat. The vice-regal house party, which included many well-known ladies, was chaperoned by Their Excellency to the most favorable positions on the grandstand, while the picturesque foreign delegation, known as the Friends of the Emerald Isle, was accommodated on a tribune directly opposite. The delegation, present in full force, consisted of Commendatore Baci Benino Benone, which is Italian for kiss kiss pretty well, very good.
Is that basically the equivalent of like going, yes, the Italian delegate was named Pizza La Pasta?
Yeah, basically.
Or something.
This, yeah.
Hell yeah.
Monsieur Pierre
Fuck
Paul
yeah. Insulting the
Petit
Italians,
Patant,
still winning.
the Grand Joker, Vladimir Poker
Yes.
Thankerchef,
I am the Grand Joker.
The
the Art Joker Leopold Rudolph von
Yes.
Schwarzenbad Hodenthaler, Countess
Joker.
Marha Viraga Kisassini Putrapesthi. Yeah.
This is good. This
It's
joke
really
is still funny today.
Hiram H. Bomboost. Count
Count
A. Thanatos Caramelopoulos. Which is, hang on, I have this here.
It's making fun of the Greeks. That's it. We
So
can
this
just move
is,
on.
this is Greek for immortal candy seller. Oh, hang on, I missed some other important names here.
Look, I'm sorry. The Arch Joker is gonna be bouncing around my head for a
So
while.
Arch Joker Leopold Rudolph von Schwarzenbad Hodenthaler. You want to take a wild guess what Schwarzenbad Hodenthaler means?
Anything I
Pig
say would be
farmer.
wrong.
It is I believe German or maybe Austrian. Wait, is Austrian its own
I'm
language?
thinking Austrian.
Anyway, it means
Yes.
penis in bath
It's no.
of the
but
Valley
yes.
of the Testicles.
Yes.
Nice.
Oh, ball
Yeah.
sack Joker. I'm gonna make my own.
Anyway, the names get progressively more ridiculous. Alibaba, Bakshish, Rahat, Locum Effendi. Senor Hidalgo, Caballero, Don Pecadillo, y Palabras, y Paternoster, de la Malora, de la Malaria, Hocopoco, Harakiri. Ekumbokum indeed. This is Sir Noble Knight, Mr. Peccadillo, and Words and Lord's Prayer of the Evil House of Malaria. Hoko Poco Harakiri.
I feel like we're
I
laughing
believe
at
it's
this
just
for the
some.
wrong reasons. I feel like
I don't even know what that one's supposed to mean, other than Ekumbokum. Hi, Hung Chang. Olaf Coburn Kedelson.
Edelson. Yeah. Meneer Trick Van Trumps. And Polax, Patty Risky. Goose Pound. Krugster, Krachtenbach, Risky Schreich.
Oh, wait, hold on.
maybe the
Herr
real
Kurhaus,
Okay,
der
so
President, Hans Tschütz
I fucking love this name. So, who wants to take a wild guess what her house director president means?
Her house
It means
president.
Director President of the House of Horrors.
Yes.
Hans hugely, sheerly, National Gymnasium, Museum, Sanatorium, and Suspensorium, Sordinary, Privato, Decent, General History, Special Professor Dr. Kriegfried, Überler Jamin. The translation, that one's pretty obvious there. This feels like something out of like a National Lampoon movie. Like now paging, Boris Huppenkopf, please come to the nearest courtesy phone.
Like, this is some old SNL shit.
This is a joke they cut.
Exactly. All the delegates, without exception, expressed themselves in the strongest possible heterogeneous terms concerning the nameless barbarity upon which they had been called upon to witness. An animated altercation, in which all took part, ensued among the friends of the Emerald Isle here means Ireland, as to whether the 8th or the 9th of March was the correct date of the birth of Ireland's patron saint. So this was apparently actually a matter of great theological debate. So much so that at some point they just had to pick a day and canonize it, because people wouldn't stop fighting about it.
Presumably that day was, presumably nobody agreed on that day.
Yeah, so there's a joke. There's an Irish folk song about this that I'll get to in a moment here.
The Pope, or like the Archbishop of all
remember,
of Ireland had to pick a day
they are
describing
the hanging of an Irish nationalist. And they are now cutting to the friends of the Emerald Isle, getting into a fight over the birth date of Ireland's patron saint. In the course of the argument, cannonballs, scimitars...
Hold on. Is James Joyce, from the beginning of the 20th century, making fun of so-called allies?
Yes.
Stop being relevant!
In the course of the argument, cannonballs, scimitars, boomerangs, blunderbusses, stink pots, meat choppers, umbrellas, catapults, knuckle dusters, sandbags, lumps of pig iron were resorted to, and blows were freely exchanged. The baby policeman, Constable MacFadden, summoned by special courier from Booterstown, quickly restored order, with lightning promptitude, proposed the 17th of the month as a solution equally honorable for both contending parties. So there was a folk song about a group of drunken monks who get in a fight over the birthday of this saint, and a very drunk, very wise man steps in and intervenes and says, fellas, there's no need to fight. We'll just pick a day that satisfies both of us. 9 plus 8 is 17, is it not? So let us call it the 17th. The joke being that this solution satisfies neither party and is, of course, even more wrong than the rest of them.
A perfect compromise.
Sounds about right.
So the ready-witted 9-footer's suggestion. So this man is 9 feet tall. He is a baby.
Jesus.
The baby.
This giant baby all over again.
Look at the little baby. Now look at the big baby.
So there was apparently a law requiring all constables to be like at least 6'5" or something like that. He is 9 feet tall.
No man what's allowed.
So they're either so it's basically the Celtics in the 70s, all right, or the Bulls in the 90s.
I have no idea what those references are.
Sports. They're
the ready-witted
teams.
9-footer's suggestion at once appealed to all and was unanimously accepted. Constable MacFadden was heartily congratulated by all of the friends of the Emerald Isles, several of whom...
And everyone stood up and clapped.
And
several of whom were bleeding profusely.
So good.
Commendator Benito Benone, having been extricated from underneath the presidential armchair. It was explained by his legal advisor, Avocado Pagamini.
That's amazing.
Mamma mia.
Not just the
Mario,
hilarity of the name
avocado,
avocado,
pecorino.
but in Romance languages, the word for lawyer is literally advocat.
Yeah. So this is
Because
avocado is actually Italian for advocate.
His lawyer.
But also avocado.
The book. Okay, we've interrupted Ulysses to bring you like a
Yes.
cartoon.
This is like
Yes. I want to see
Yeah,
this animated
it
with
it is
baby
just
cop
so
telling
funny.
people to just add the dates.
9-foot baby cop.
See, Ulysses needs to be a Netflix miniseries.
So yeah, this has gone like completely
Find a way
off
to
the
ruin it.
rails.
They'd make Leopold.
It was explained by his legal advisor, Avocado Pagamimi, that the various articles secreted in his 32 pockets had been abstracted by him during the affray from the pockets of his junior colleagues in the hope of bringing them to their senses. The objects, which included several hundred ladies' and gentlemen's gold and silver watches, were promptly restored to their rightful owners, and general harmony reigned supreme. So, in order to bring his colleagues to their senses, he took several hundreds of their watches and stowed them in his 32 pockets.
Can he bend a girder too?
Like, what are you even fucking talking about? Quietly, unassumingly, Rumbold stepped onto the scaffold in faultless morning dress, and wearing his favorite flower, the Gladiolus cruentus. He announced his presence by that gentle Rumboldian cough, which so many have tried unsuccessfully to imitate. Short, painstaking, yet withal so characteristic of the man. The arrival of the world-renowned headsman was greeted by a roar of acclamation from the huge concourse, the vice-regal ladies waving their handkerchiefs in excitement, while the even more excitable foreign delegates cheered vociferously in a medley of cries: Hoc! Banzai! Elgen! Visio! Chin-chin! Boya Gronia! Hip hip! Vive! Allah! Amid which the ringing Eviva of the delegate of the land of song, a high double F for calling those piercingly lovely notes with which the eunuch Catalani beglamoured our great-great-grandmothers, was easily distinguishable. It was exactly 17 o'clock. The signal for prayer was then promptly given by megaphone, and in an instant all heads were bared. The commendator's patriarchal sombrero, which has been in the possession of his family since the revolution of Rienzi, being removed by his medical advisor in attendance, Dr. Peepee.
This is a bit from Airplane.
Is this so? This for those of you who don't know, there is a one of the top competitive Super Smash Bros. Melee for Nintendo GameCube players, PPMD, formerly Dr. Peepee. Little did he know that was a Ulysses reference. The learned prelate who administers the last comforts of holy religion to the hero martyr, when about to pay the death penalty, knelt in a most Christian spirit in a pool of rainwater, his cassock above his hoary head, and offered up to the throne of grace fervent prayers of supplication. Hand by the block stood the grim figure of the executioner, his visage being concealed in a 10-gallon pot, with 2 circular perforated apertures through which his eyes glowed furiously. So this man sounds like a fucking Dark Souls enemy.
Yeah.
As he waited the fatal signal, he tested the edge of his horrible weapon by honing it upon his brawny forearm, or decapitated in rapid succession a flock of sheep which had been provided by the admirers of his fell but necessary office. So they gave him a flock of sheep to test his executioner's axe on. On a handsome mahogany table near him were neatly arranged the quartering knife. Note that he was not actually quartered, he was only hanged. The various finely tempered, disemboweling appliances, specially supplied by the world-famous firm of cutlers, Messrs. John Round and Sons, Sheffield. A
Sheffield
terracotta
Steel.
saucepan for the reception of the duodenum, colon, blind intestine, and appendix, etc., when successfully extracted, and 2 commodious milk jugs,
Ooh.
destined to
Ooh,
receive
Joyce,
the
that's
most
a terrible
precious
joke.
blood of the most precious victim. The house steward of the amalgamated Cats and Dogs home was in attendance to convey these vessels when replenished to that beneficent institution. Quite an excellent repast consisting of rashers and eggs, fried steak and onions done to a nicety, delicious hot breakfast rolls, and invigorating tea had been considerately provided by the authorities for the consumption of the central figure of the tragedy, who was in capital spirits when prepared for death, and evinced the keenest interest in the proceedings from beginning to end. But he, with an abnegation rare in these our times, rose nobly to the occasion and expressed the dying wish, immediately acceded to, that the meal should be divided in adequate parts among the members of the Sick and Indigent Roomkeepers Association, as a token of his regard and esteem. The neck and non plus ultra of emotion were reached when the blushing bride-elect burst her way through the serried ranks of the bystanders and flung herself upon the muscular bosom of him who was about to be launched into eternity for her sake. The hero folded her willowy form in a loving embrace, murmured fondly, "Sheila, my own." Encouraged by this use of her Christian name, she kissed passionately all the variable suitable areas of his person which the decency of prison garb permitted her ardor to reach. She swore to him as they mingled the salt streams of their tears that she would ever cherish his memory, and that she would never forget her hero boy who went to his death with a song on his lips, as if he were but going to a hurling match in Clonturk Park. She brought back his recollection to the happy days of blissful childhood together on the banks of Anna when they had indulged in the innocent pastimes of the young. And, oblivious to the dreadful present, they both laughed heartily, all the spectators, including the venerable pastor, joining in the general merriment. Remember, this is an execution that's going on right now. Not just an execution,
Yes.
but a drawing, quartering, and disembowelment, the organs of which will be fed to the
Yeah.
cats and dogs. That monster audience simply
that's what he
rocked
gets
with
for
delight.
trying-
But anon they were
That's what
overcome
you get
with
for
grief
going
and
against the
clasped their
crowd.
hands for the last time. A fresh torrent of tears burst from their lacrimal ducts. And the vast concourse of people, touched to the inmost core, broke into heart-rending sobs, not the least affected being the aged prebendary himself. Big, strong men, officers of the peace, and genial giants of the Royal Irish Constabulary, were making frank use of their handkerchiefs, and it is safe to say that there was not a dry eye in that record assemblage. A most romantic incident occurred when a handsome young Oxford graduate, noted for his chivalry towards the fairer sex, stepped forward and, presenting his visiting card, bank book, and genealogical tree, solicited the hand of the hapless young lady, requesting her to name the day, and was accepted on the spot. So someone has propositioned the lover of the man being executed by presenting his calling card, his checkbook, and his family tree. And then asking her to pick a day for them to date.
Fellow Reddit user, I see.
Every lady in the audience was presented with a tasty souvenir of the occasion in the shape of a skull and crossbones brooch, a timely and generous act which evoked a fresh outburst of emotion. And when the gallant young Oxonian, the bearer, by the way, of one of the most time-honored names in Albion's history, placed on the finger of his blushing fiancée an expensive engagement ring, with emeralds set in the form of a four-leaved shamrock, the excitement knew no bounds. Nay, even the stir Provost Marshal Lieutenant Colonel Tompkin Maxwell, French Milan Tomlinson, who presided on the sad occasion, he who had blown a considerable number of sepoys from the cannon mouth without flinching, could not now restrain his natural emotion. With his mailed gauntlet, he brushed away a furtive tear, and was overheard by those privileged burghers who happened to be in his immediate entourage to murmur to himself, in a faltering undertone, "God blimey if she ain't a clinker, that there bleeding tart. Blimey, it makes me kind of bleeding cry. Straight it does when I see her, 'cause I thinks of me old mash tub, who's waiting for me down Limehouse way."
Yes. Let's see.
God bless James Joyce. So then the citizens begin talking about the Irish language and the corporate meeting and all to that. and the Shonines that can't speak their own language. So they're back to the normal dialogue here.
How much further do we have to go in this first part of this
10
chapter?
pages. We are 80% of the way through. So we're drawing to a close
let's see
here.
if we can get through this quick.
Yeah, we can.
Yeah, so there's not a whole lot that is particularly important. So we'll skim through the normal dialogue. So they're talking about dogs. They're talking about rabid dogs. They do a parody of a newspaper promoting a theatrical performance, only the performance is dogs speaking Welsh. And then yeah.
I mean, that's impressive. I can't.
They're talking about
Welsh.
talking
I was gonna
dogs.
say, well, most people can.
Then he starts hauling and mauling and talking to him in Irish, and the old Towser growling, letting on to answer like a duet in the opera. Such growling you never heard as they let off between them. Someone that has nothing better to do ought to write a letter pro bono publico to the papers about the muzzling order for a dog the like of that. Growling and grousing, and his eye all bloodshot from the drouth is in it, and the hydrophobia dropping out of his jaws. All those who are interested in the spread of human culture among the lower animals, and their name is Legion, should make a point of not missing the really marvelous exhibition of Skynanthropy, given by the famous old Irish red setter wolf dog, formerly known by the sobriquet of Gary Owen, and recently rechristened by his large circle of friends and acquaintances, Owen Gary. The exhibition, which is the result of years of training
this is a Tim and Eric
by
bit.
kindness and a carefully thought-out dietary system, comprises, among other achievements, the recitation of verse. Our greatest living phonetic expert, wild horses shall not drag him from us, has left no stone unturned in his efforts to delucidate and compare the verse recited, and has found it bears striking resemblance to the rands of ancient Celtic bards. We are not speaking so much of those delightful love songs with which the writer who conceals his identity under the graceful pseudonym of the Little Sweet Branch has familiarized the book-loving world, but rather, as contributor DOC points out in an interesting communication published by an evening contemporary, of the harsher and more personal note, which is found in the satirical effusions of the famous Raftery and Donald MacConsidine, to say nothing of more modern lyrist, at present very much in the public eye. We subjoin a specimen which has been rendered into English by an eminent scholar whose name for the moment we are not at liberty to disclose, though we believe that our readers will find the topical allusion rather more than an indication. The metrical system of the canine original, which recalls the intricate alliterative and isosyllabic rules of the Welsh England, is infinitely more complicated, but we believe our readers will agree that the spirit has been well caught. So he's making fun of attempts to translate Irish poems into English. Perhaps
Is that what that was?
Perhaps it should be added that the effect is greatly increased if Owen's verse should be spoken somewhat slowly and indistinctly in a tone suggestive of suppressed rancor.
Brett taking it away from us.
So the parody here was a parody of a newspaper
About this specific
talking
thing.
about an event in which a rabid dog speaks Irish. He is then parodying attempts to translate Irish poetry into English by having just the dog utter a curse. The curse of my curses, 7 days every day and 7 days.
Alex, you're saying it too fast.
All right, would someone else like to take a crack at the reading of this?
Yeah. Yes.
Your mic's not picking you up here.
Because as I was often told growing up,
You're still cutting in and out. You gotta lean more into the mic or something, I think.
the curse of my curses.
No.
He's dead.
Rest in
Yeah.
peace.
I'm not sure if he's doing a bit about saying it.
No, I
even
can hear
slower.
muffled
Or-
Brandon from across the house.
No,
All
I'm
there
right
you
over
go.
my
Now you sound good.
microphone.
All right, take that again from the top.
Curse of my curses. 7 days every day, and 7 dry Thursdays on you, Arnie Kiernan, has no sup of water to cool my courage, and my guts red roaring after Lowry's lights.
Beautiful. Now just imagine a rabid dog saying that, but in the original Irish.
Yeah, that tracks.
And then he's like, "Could you make a hole in another pint? Could a swim duck?" says I. Which I just thought was a fun phrase. Could a swim duck?
Yeah.
And then they're trying to get Bloom to do a drink, and he doesn't drink because he's a loser.
Yeah.
And then they engage in a very, very boring discussion about how Patty Dignam is trying to collect the life insurance money, but there's some issue with the way the policy is written or something. Bloom does a bit of a Freudian slip here. Well, that's a point, says Bloom, for the wife's admirers. Whose admirers, says Joe? The wife's advisors, I mean, says Bloom. Because he's just got it in his head, the fact that everyone else is banging his hot wife.
Yeah.
He's
He's correct.
so correct. One of the first times he's been correct.
Did you fuck my wife?
But, I mean, she does have a back like a handball court, so...
Who could resist? Who could resist that?
Yeah, so you got this dialogue. Let me, said he, so far presume upon our acquaintance, which, however slight it may appear, if judged by the standard of mere time, is founded, as I hope and believe, on a sentiment of mutual esteem, as to request of you this favor. But should I have overstepped the limits of reserve, let the sincerity of my feelings be the excuse for my boldness. No, rejoined the other, I appreciate to the full motives which actuate your conduct, and I shall discharge the office you entrust to me, consoled by the reflection that, though the errand be one of sorrow, this proof of your confidence sweetens in some measure the bitterness of the cup. I don't know what this dialogue is about.
Mm-hmm.
I just thought it was kind of fun.
Yeah.
What else we got here? Oh, here's a, yeah, so I believe that this sacred task that he has been entrusted in is fetching another 3 pints. Which he does. So Terry brought the 3 pints. Here, says Joe. And then someone says, teach your grandmother how to milk ducks. Which I can only begin to imagine what that phrase means. But man, is it a fun one.
Does it give any explanation? Or are we... has this been left
Exercise
as a
for the reader,
exercise
yeah.
for the reader?
And then, Joyce goes full poet, and delivers unto us this beautiful prose. Ga ga gara, klook klook klook. Black Liz is our hen. She lays eggs for us.
Apparently that phrase is not something, hang on. So there's
No, it just means to do something that's
grandmothers who
impossible.
suck eggs, but I don't see to milk ducks.
Yeah, milking ducks means I just popped it into the old Google. It means to do something that is impossible.
Right, okay.
Apparently, you can't milk a duck.
No, really.
Yeah, they don't have nipples.
On
Yeah.
account that they're not mammals. You got no.
Yes.
Ga ga gara, klook klook klook. Black Liz is our hen. She lays eggs for us. When she lays her eggs, she is so glad. Gara, klook klook klook. Then comes good Uncle Leo. He puts his hand under Black Liz and takes her fresh egg. Ga ga ga, gara. Klook klook klook. So I believe that this is a parody of the way that they would write, like, primers for kindergartners to learn their English reading skills. It's just like, who knows? Then they get on to, so they do a parody of the way that the House of Commons would record their minutes. Mr. Cowie Conacre, Multi Farnham, Nat, arising out of the question of my honorable friend, the member for Shillelagh, may I ask the right honorable gentleman whether the government has issued orders that these animals shall be slaughtered, though no medical evidence is forthcoming as to their pathological condition. So the animals that they're describing are people who play Irish games in the park.
Those
Yeah.
bastards.
How dare they play Irish handball? Honorable Mr. All Fours Tamoshant Khan. Honorable members are already in possession of the evidence produced before a committee of the whole House. I feel I cannot usefully add anything to that. The answer to the honorable member's question is in the affirmative. Mr. O'Reilly Montanot Nat. Have similar orders been issued for the slaughter of human animals who dare to play Irish games in the Phoenix Park? Mr. All Fours. The answer is in the negative. Mr. Cow Conacher. Has the right honorable gentleman's famous Mitchelstown telegram inspired the policy of gentlemen on the Treasury branch? Oh, Mr. All Fours. I must have notice of that question. Mr. Stalywit, Buncombe Ind. Don't hesitate to shoot. Ironical opposition cheers. The Speaker. Order. The House rises. Cheers. There's the man, says Joe, that made the Gaelic sports revival. There he is, sitting there. The man that got away, James Stephens. The champion of all Ireland at putting the 16-pound shot. What was your best throw, citizen? Yeah, so, again, I don't really know what's going on, but I like the sound of it. There's just some more dialogue, and then they go on to my, probably the most obscure parody. So, back in the day, right, advertising was totally different than how it is now. Modern advertising is all about being, like, snappy and memorable and catchy because you know that you will only have, like, at most, like, 5 seconds of the audience's attention to get your point across, right? When you see a printed advertisement. But back in the day, people were so bored that all they would do is read the newspaper all day. So, the more words you put into an advertisement meant the longer someone would spend looking at your advertisement. That's why you have, like, the old-fashioned copy, right? They would have paragraphs and paragraphs about the product or service they were offering.
Yeah.
Well, one of the other things that they would do is they would take an advertisement.
They get like stuff like Dr. Wonderful's magic cocaine.
Yeah, exactly.
Cures all ailments.
It's 50% morphium by volume, and the other 50% is coca extract. Don't mix your uppers and your downers, kids. Yeah, the fact that they would just put opium and cocaine in cough syrup just blows my mind. But I'm sure you feel great.
Probably will not
Have you guys seen the colic cure for infants? That is morphine.
Yeah, that was just. I was straight morphine for colicky infants.
Baby crying too much? Give him heroin.
I'll shut him up.
Fuck them kids. Fuck them kids.
A thing that they would do in the newspaper is they would have a paid promotion column that is an advertisement, but it would be written as such a way to appear as if it was not an advertisement and was instead some other interesting thing to get people to read that was actually an advertisement. So this passage is a parody of the way that a newspaper would take an advertisement that was written to seem like it was a description of the events of a notable meeting. Which is like...
It's basically like the sort of
sponsored content.
Early TV's product placement, where it's just like in the middle of the show they stop and like shill their brand of cigarettes.
Like
or whatever.
YouTubers.
Or that, yes.
YouTubers, podcasters, or like in the real early days of TV, it wouldn't just be like the show brought to you by a product. It would be craft television theater.
Yeah.
And like, it was weird.
Bad
Old advertising is weird.
Bad times. They haven't gotten much better, but they were bad back then.
Anyway,
Oh, yeah.
so this one's kind of long and like deliberately not very exciting. So I'm gonna skip ahead a little bit to
Yeah, to
the
fit
part where they
McCool.
just list a whole bunch of fucking names. The Very Reverend William
joke
Delaney,
back at it again.
SJLLD. The RT Rev Gerald Malloy, DD. The Rev PJ Kavanaugh, CSSP.
Reverend.
The Rev T Waters, CC. The Rev John M Ivers, PP. The Rev
CCSP.
PJ Cleary, OSF. The Rev LJ Hickey, OP. The Very Rev Fur Nicholas, OSFC. The Very Rev B Gorman, ODC. The Rev T Maher, SJ.
MFA,
The Very
PSD.
Rev James Murphy, SJ. The Rev John Lavery,
Esquire.
VF. The Very Rev William Doherty. Wait, didn't they already mention Doherty?
ASC.
No, maybe earlier. The Rev
The fact that
The Rev Peter Fagan,
you're
OM.
going with a Rev instead of the Reverend.
The Rev T Brangan, OSA. The Rev J Flavin, CC. The Rev M.A. Hackett, CC. The Rev W Hurley, CC. The RT Rev Mgur Mamanus, VG. The Rev B.R. Slattery, OMI. The Very Rev M.D. Scally, PP. The Rev F.T. Purcell, OP. The Very Rev Timothy Cannon Gorman, PP. The Rev J. Flanagan, CC. The laity included P. Fay, T. Quirk, etc., etc.
But how about the Reverend Picotaro, PPAP?
Pen, pineapple, apple pen?
That's the guy.
That's the one. The very same.
The Rev.
Talking about violent exercise, says Elf. Were you at the Keo Bennett match? No, says Joe. I heard so-and-so made a cool 100 quid over it, says Elf. Who, Blazes? Says Joe. Yeah, so there's just some more dialogue here, and then that's pretty much it. So that's where we're leaving off for part
For this
1
week.
of chapter 2. Tune in next week for part 2. Oh, sorry, chapter 12. Part 2 of
Yeah.
chapter 12. Starting on page 578 and continuing to the end of the chapter on page 628. Furthermore, starting next week, book club will be on Wednesdays rather than on Thursdays, so that we can eat buy one get one boneless buffalo bites on Thursdays. Which might sound to a layperson as a silly reason to reschedule, but first of all, we can do book club whatever we want. Buy one get one boneless buffalo bites at Buffalo Wild Wings is only on Thursdays. This episode of Book Club is
Not
brought to you
sponsored,
by
but not
Buffalo
sponsored.
Wild Wings.
Sponsored.
Every Thursday is boneless buffalo bites. BOGO night.
Please sponsor us.
I would eat some boneless buffalo.
They're really
bites.
good.
I wouldn't.
As
someone who's already taken sponsorship, I no longer have problems with taking
they're
sponsorship.
They're chicken nuggets.
Yeah,
dipped in
they're
buffalo
They're
taken
sauce.
just
sponsorship.
Kinda
really
works
good,
out.
really cheap
Rat.
chicken nuggets. Anyway, they're one of the few
Oh, right,
things
the
left
rat.
in life for me to live for. So,
Well, when's the next VTuber stream?
oh, they're going on right now. My dedication is
yeah.
so great.
It's a genre.
That I'll
Brandon, it's
catch
a
the
genre.
VODs
There
instead.
is always one going on. That's a bit like asking if there's any television on.
Well, see, you say that, but
What's
the
TV?
VTubers all do go to sleep from about like noon, 1, 2 in the afternoon to like
Sure.
5, 6 in the evening, our time.
Are the English language ones still out of Japan?
So, okay, great question. 2 of them,
Because surely if some of them are not in Japan, or like there's one in Europe and one in America, then surely that covers like every
that is a
time zone.
fantastic question, and I will proceed to spend the next hour explaining it.